Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you.
Now entering the game for Philly Pressbox Radio, Bill Furman and Jim Chet Chesko.
Hello, Philly sports fans. No, Bill Furman is not here. You're right. It's just me, at least for now. Maybe Bill will join the show later on. We'll see. He got tied up with something. I thought he was retired. I guess not. Wednesday, February 28th, 2024. And this is Philly Pressbox Radio Roundtable, brought to you by the Irish Rover Station House in Langhorne, PA, Cabs Philly Tailgates, and the Edge of Philly Sports Network, of course. As I said, Bill may or may not be on the show later on, but hey, if not, we will struggle and get through this, I promise you. The 76ers, we can tell you, have really struggled. They've lost, 3 or 8 of their last 11. They are now close to falling out of the top 6. They're within a half game of 7th place in the NBA East, and that would put them in the dreaded play-in tournament to get into the playoffs. We'll talk about that. The Flyers lost a couple of tough ones over the weekend, but stormed back and beat Tampa Bay in a big Tuesday night game. They needed that one badly. The Phillies are about a week into spring training. The Eagles staff is at the NFL Combine, and we'll also talk about the possibility that Philadelphia will be shut out of March Madness this year. I hope not. As I said, huge win for the Flyers. They needed that one. The Sixers, though, tough to watch these days without the big guy, although they did give the Celtics a battle for 3+ quarters. You kind of knew it was going to end the way it did, however. We have a great guest on the show tonight. It is NJ.com's Bob Brookover, and it's always good to talk to Brooky. We will talk Eagles and Phillies with him, and it looks like he is ready to roll, so let's do this thing. Bob Brookover, how you doing, man?
Yeah, how's it going?
Doing all right, man. Everything's going well. I got to tell you, the Eagles, I don't know what to expect from them these days. They haven't played a game in more than 6 weeks now, but we're still talking quite a bit about them, given, the late season swoon, the coaching changes, talk of locker room turmoil. Let's start with your take on the demise, which, by the way, began shortly after you went from covering the Giants to the Philadelphia Eagles again. So I'm blaming part of this on you, Bob.
Well, some people have blamed it all on me. I've got the numbers. The numbers are, when I was covering the Giants and the Eagles this season, they went 5-14. And we're minus 224 point differential. That part is good. Here's the really amazing part. When I wasn't covering those teams this year, they went a combined 12-4 and had a better record than both Super Bowl teams. And we're like a plus 65 point differential.
That is right. Hey, what happened? How did you get switched from covering the Giants to the Eagles mid-season?
So, I mean, we are a unique site in terms of, we are the only site that covers the Jets, Giants, and Eagles are the 3 teams we cover. We also cover the Yankees, the Devils. We do cover a lot of things, don't cover a lot of things. But in the NFL, we cover the 3 teams in the area because of the way the paper's set up. We have the site, we have a paper in Trenton, a paper in what was used to be the Gloucester County Times, now the South Jersey Times. So we span the whole state of New Jersey and both New York and Philly markets. The Eagles are the big market for our Philly coverage. And I was in Vegas, of all places. And for the Giants, I guess it was their 8th or 9th game of the season, ninth game of the season, I think. And in the first quarter, Daniel Jones goes down with a torn ACL. He's done. They lose the game. They fall to 2-7. When I got back to my hotel room, there's a message there. Hey, my boss knows my background, obviously, when he hired me, that, I have a heavy Philly background. And there's an email saying, hey, let's talk about you going over to the Eagles beat when you get back from Vegas. So we did talk about it. I covered one more Giants Cowboys game. I believe it was Tommy DeVito's first start. It was a disaster. And they got killed in Dallas. And then I went and covered the Eagles. They won the first game against the Chiefs, won the next game, maybe the best NFL regular season game the season. Certainly one of them, the Eagles-Bills game, which was a great win. And then they just looked like they were. I will say this: they were a worse team than the Giants team I covered for the rest of that season. That's how bad they looked and played, I thought.
So what do you see? What did you see happening? They say it was just execution. That's the only explanation we got from some of the players, but it had to be something more than that, right?
Yeah, but I don't know what. I mean, obviously there have been all kinds of theories about, well, Jalen wasn't a good leader. Jalen wasn't a good leader when things went bad. There's been the chemistry went bad. There has been the coordinators. Nick's system is stale. Obviously, I did hate the coordinator move by Nick Sirianni in the middle of the season. That I would have, and it may have turned out no different, but I just didn't think doing what he did to Sean Desai in the middle of the season was the time to do it. Maybe there was a disconnect between Desai and the players, but I never liked doing anything like that in the middle of a season, especially in a sport like football where there's so many moving parts. But I don't know that anybody actually has the exact answer, because this team still has talent. They've remade themselves some this offseason. Obviously, there's a lot to be done here, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Yeah. But I don't think there's a perfect answer. I haven't seen a perfect answer yet. I don't really buy into the Jalen Hurts leadership thing entirely, because I do. When people say, hey, you know what? 6 weeks earlier, everybody loved the type of leader Jalen Hurts was, because he was accountable. He never got too high or too low. Could his body language look bad sometimes on the sidelines? Yes. But that's who he is. And since the season's ended, A.J. Brown came out and said it last week. That's who he is. When I asked about it, during the season, and admittedly, I had to build some relationships in a hurry after switching beats, and probably didn't have as great a relationship as some people in terms of getting people to say things. But the people I talked to who were willing to talk to me basically said what, Jordan Mailata being one of them, hey, this is who the guy is. Why should we want him to be something different? And I had a long talk with Marcus Mariota about him during the season. And he said, Jalen is a guy who wants to be told when things, he doesn't want to be told, oh, you're doing this great, you're doing that great. He wants to be told when he's not doing great. He wants to be an accountable guy. So to answer your question I can't answer your question. I'm not sure anybody can answer your question exactly what happened to that team. Excuse me.
As you said, everybody was fine with Jalen Hurts when they were winning. When you're going to the Super Bowl or you're 10-1, it's not an issue. But then when you lose, a bunch of games in a row, I think they want to see, more fire from him, to be less stoic, to, show some emotion. But does that really do anything? I honestly don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, I'll go back to my baseball covering roots of, Larry Bowe was too emotional. And, even Nick Sirianni's been, hey, he's too emotional. You act who you are. It was Travis Kelce too emotional in the Super Bowl? Probably. But, it didn't keep the Chiefs from winning the Super Bowl. So there are a million different ways to win, and a million different – and execution maybe is part of it. They lost a playoff game. I wasn't surprised at all that they lost a playoff game, that they didn't have Reed Blankenship in the secondary. They didn't have, A.J. Brown, playing. They weren't going to win that game without A.J. Brown. And they, just so many things. And by that point, their mojo was entirely gone. Once you lose to the Giants in the last game of the season, you can lose to anybody.
Yeah, and that Cardinals lost too, and giving up a 92-yard drive to Seattle with a backup quarterback. It was just ugly. I'm trying to put it in my past.
And as it all went on, like it did become a snowball where it's like, how do we get out of this? You could tell there were some lost souls in that locker room in terms of what was going on.
I'm going to ask you another question that I know you don't have the answer to, but I'll ask it anyway. What is your gut?
I don't have an answer.
What's your gut feeling? Jason Kelce. Is Jason Kelce going to be back? Like I said, you don't have the answer, but what are you sensing? I go back and forth on this one.
Well, I'll give you my hope. My hope is yes, because I feel deprived that I just got back to covering the Eagles, and certainly the two guys I was so happy to be back seeing and covering were Jason Kelce, who just all-time great guy who I covered. If I had to make a Mount Rushmore of guys that I've covered in terms of being good people and great players, Jason Kelce would be on that. And the other one being Brandon Graham, who just terrific person, and it was great to cover him. And I'm hoping he's back. He wants to be back. I'm hoping he's going to be back. I'm doubting that he's going to be back. He's just from his routine since the season ended. In terms of, and Jordan Mailata said this at the Super Bowl. He didn't say it to me, but he said it to somebody. I forget who it was. Basically, look at how much fun he's having. He's not coming back, and he's having a blast. And I saw a podcast yesterday. He was on with Dana Carvey and David Spade. I'm like,
yeah.
Could you imagine him ever thinking, yeah, I'm going to be done football. I'm going to go on a podcast with David Spade and Dana Carvey. What has life become? And there's a lot out there for him if he doesn't want to play anymore. So I got to think that part has got to be really tempting for him. But again, for my own personal selfish sake, I'd love to see Jason Kelce back for another year.
Yeah, me too. All right, you mentioned the defense having some issues. They had a lot of issues, clearly. What does Howie do? Is he going to make some big splash free agent signings? Is it going to be done with the draft? Are they going to, as they alluded to, Howie in that little brief news conference yesterday said, give some of the young guys a chance? How do you go about it with this defense that did not do well last season?
I think the answer to that is yes, all of the above. I think you will see some free agent moves. Free agency is going to be strange, though, because this increase in the salary cap, it made for a lot more teams. They're going to have a chance to go after guys. I have to think the Eagles and Philadelphia is still one of the prime landing destinations for a lot of free agents, so that should help them. But there's going to be guys. The other thing it allows. There's going to be more competition. There's also going to be a lot of, even more so this, where teams that might have had trouble keeping guys will now be able to keep their own guys. So maybe the market's not going to be nearly as attractive as it initially looked. So there's that. And yes, they're definitely going to go after some defensive help in the draft. I'd be shocked if they didn't. I'd be shocked if they didn't use their first round pick on a defensive player. I mean, I know they have 2 years in a row, but those were both a defensive tackle. I guarantee you they're not going to draft a defensive tackle first, but they're going to draft a defensive player. And what was your third option there? I forget what you said. What?
Give some of the young guys a real chance to play, like Nolan Smith and those guys.
They started to do that at the end of last season. Someone by necessity. Klee Ringo got more of a look in cornerback, and I think he needs to, at the very least, be competing with James Bradbury if he's back.
Hope not.
What's that?
I hope not. Bradbury.
Yeah, I mean, Howie alluded to him being back yesterday, but I don't know if I believe that entirely or if that's his way of maybe trying to move him. But so and then Nolan Smith started getting a little bit more look at the end of the season. They need Jalen Carter was terrific. He tail off a little at the end, yeah, but he still had an incredible rookie season. They need Jordan Davis to be. He started well and really faded, and they need him to really stand up and be more of a guy. The Hassan Reddick thing is going to be fascinating to see how this whole thing plays out with him. I think if they don't bring him back, then you need to go out and free. I don't think you can just draft his replacement. I think you need to go out in free agency and get somebody comparable to him. Brian Burns is a guy who quickly comes to mind, as somebody, and try to upgrade at linebacker too. They're in a position, although Jerry Robinson's the last first-round pick, and
Yeah.
I was a junior in high school when they did that. I think a freshman or sophomore, or junior in high school.
It was a while ago. Yep.
long time ago. But they're in a position that they might be able to get a good linebacker at where they're picking. You know, a guy they need a linebacker that makes plays, that really creates turnovers, makes plays. They just seems like so long since they've had somebody like that.
Well, speaking of that, a lot of the Eagles fans are clamoring for Jeremiah Trotter Jr. Is there any shot that he'll be an Eagle?
From what I've seen, he's not. And this is draft experts, and this is guys, who know a lot more about the draft than I do. But he's not like a number one guy. He's more of a second or third guy. Mm-hmm. For among the linebackers. The guy who's getting a lot of hype is Edgerrin Cooper from Texas A&M. I believe he's from. Yeah. I won't say that they won't draft Jeremiah Trotter Jr. I just don't think they're going to draft him in the first round, and I don't think he's going to get drafted in the first round. Again, I'd love to see him here. He's a local guy, and I loved covering his father. His father. Yep. Really good guy, and obviously a really good player. Also not a first round pick; he was a later round pick. So, right. So we'll see. But I'd love to do it. But I don't. He's not going to go in the first round. Let's put it that way.
Going to be an interesting next couple of months for sure. Hey, let's switch gears a little bit and talk some Phillies before we let you get on with your evening. Today, of course, being the 5th anniversary of the Phillies signing Bryce Harper to that long contract that he may want to get renegotiated. I don't know about that. But Bryce Harper back for another season with the Phillies. I don't know about you, Bob, but I'm expecting a big year out of Bryce. He's starting the year healthy, going to have a full season, we hope. What are you expecting from Bryce?
Sure. I mean, he's lived up to his contract to this point. Obviously, there have been some injuries, but, in terms of what he's done in postseason play and just who he's been, he's certainly lived up to that. Yeah, I do expect him to have a big year. It's amazing that 5 years have gone by already, but it's also amazing that there's 8 more years. I remember I did a big story on him when they signed him. It's funny because I've been to Vegas twice in the last 3 months and like 6 times in the last 2 years, and I'd never been there in my life before they signed Bryce. But I'm going back there a lot. But I remember going down to the Nationals clubhouse and talking to who's the face of their franchise. I'm drawing a blank on his name. Was there forever. First baseman and a third baseman.
Molitor?
No. For the Nats. Anyway.
Oh, the Nats.
Yeah. For the Nationals. I can't think of his name right now. I'm drawing a blank. Yeah. But anyway, he said he was toward the end of his career and he's done now.
Zimmerman?
Yeah, Ryan Zimmerman. Thank you.
There you go.
He said, "Is it Ryan Zimmerman?" No, it's I don't know. Zimmerman. Yes, definitely. He said, I'm going to be 50 years old when he's done that contract, and it was I really laughed at that. But yeah, I think Chet that he's primed to have a big season. He's still a great player. Really, what is he? 30 now, I guess. Is this his 30-year-old season?
Yeah, I think he will be 31 this year.
31. All right. He's still got prime years left. I mean, you listen to him talk about an extension, which really took me through me, and I'm sure a lot of people for a loop. But I mean, he sounds like Tom Brady. He wants to play till he's 45 years old. So we'll see.
I think he turned 31 this past October, actually. Okay. Of course, the other big thing right now is the Zach Wheeler situation. Do you just let this carry on and, let him become a free agent, or do you work like hell to get him signed before opening day?
I work to get it done, and I think the Phillies will work to get it done. I mean, Middleton, I'm not there, so I'm reading this on the run and not following nearly as closely as I normally would if I was covering the team. But it sounds to me like John Middleton wants to make sure he wraps up Zach Wheeler and has Zach Wheeler in a Phillies uniform. I'd be shocked if Zach Wheeler doesn't get a nice long-term deal and isn't part of a rotation with Aaron Nola for the next half decade or so.
What did you think of the Whit Merrifield pickup?
I like it. I watched him play a little bit today. He's a good right-handed bat in a league that it seems like there's more lefties all the time. I like it. I think it's a good, it's not just the starting 9 offensive guys that get you through a season, and he's like one of those pieces. I think that is a good fit in the clubhouse. Will be a guy you can play a lot, and sometimes give other guys days off. You really need a nucleus of 12 or 13 those type guys, and he definitely fits into that role, I think.
It looks like it's going to be bullpen by committee until somebody, comes through and wins the job and shows that he's definitely the guy. Who would you like to see getting most of the save opportunities?
Probably Alvarado, because he's the most wipeout stuff. I can't believe I'm saying I would have never said that 2 years ago because he didn't really throw enough strikes, but he's become a better strike thrower. And when you just sit there and watch the reaction to hitters when he's on, he can get away without throwing strikes sometimes because his stuff is so nasty and he's so overpowering. But he's the guy. That's the one area I think they really need to upgrade. And obviously you can do it on the fly in the middle of a season, but I'm not sure that they've upgraded that area enough going forward. Although I'm also not sure if anybody can do anything to stop the Dodgers from winning a World Series. Yeah. But we'll see.
The starting rotation, if they stay healthy, should be pretty good. I mean, you got Wheeler and Nola at the top. Ranger Suarez should be good if he's healthy. I guess the question marks are Taijuan Walker and Christopher Sanchez. There are concerns about both of them, perhaps. What do you think of those latter 2 guys that I just mentioned?
Yeah, I'm gonna be interested to see Taijuan Walker this year, because I found it interesting that he really wasn't happy about the postseason, yeah. which I think rightfully so. I think there were times, they would have been better served by using him, and I just think it became too much of a bullpen thing in the postseason. I hate it. I still go back to the World Series and think Zach Wheeler came out of that game too soon, but. There's questions about those 2 guys in the back end. Taijuan Walker had a terrific season for them last year, and Sanchez had some terrific moments. But do you go in and say, "Wow, we got 5 guys"? It ain't the 5 aces. Let's put it that way, or even the 4 aces.
I don't know how closely you follow the minor leaguers, but Mick Abel is a guy that they have high hopes for. He didn't have a great year last year in the minors, but they certainly like his stuff. And, if he is the real deal and Andrew Painter can come back healthy next year, they could be set for quite a few years.
Yeah, but I'm
it's a big if.
I covered baseball for a long time, and the Mets are the team that, to me, they always had. The Mets are always going to have a great rotation there, going back to, I can't even think of any of their names right now, but going back to the 90s, that, they were always going to have these guys, and they could never stay healthy, and so I just don't think you can count on that. Mick Abel's got a good arm. I was listening to a game the other day, and they gave his stats from last year, and he's got to throw more strikes. Larry Anderson even commented on how many walks he had last year, and he's got to throw more strikes. You got to be able to pitch. I mean, there's so many guys with good arms anymore. So many guys can throw 95 to 100, but there's not as a lot of those guys who throw 95 to 100 can't pitch and can't command the strike zone. So that's what you need to see, and that in small sample sizes last year, that was what was impressive about Sanchez, is he did do that.
All right, last thing. It's February 28th, so opening day is 1 month from today, March 28th. As we speak right here, what are your thoughts about the Phillies this season? Will they compete with the Braves for the division? Will they be a wild card team? How far can they go?
I think they'll at least be a wild card team. I think the Braves and Phillies will both be in it. You'd prefer to win it. The Phillies, the way they've gone about having to get as deep as they have, they made 2 deep runs in a row. But it gets harder, I think, that way. I just think it's it's a lot easier if you don't have to go through that first series and you win your division. I'm not sure they're deep enough to beat the Braves. I haven't looked enough at what the Braves have done, but I do know they had a lot back, and they got an incredible player in Acuna. But they're still a playoff contender, and if you get in, they've proven the last 2 years, you get in, you got a chance. So, the Diamondbacks did it, proved it last year. The Rangers, for that matter, proved the Rangers looked like they were falling apart at the end of the season. Baseball's certainly weird that way, and they looked like they were falling apart at the end of the year. They got hot at the right time and won a World Series. So yeah, I think there's going to be another Red October for Phillies fans.
Well, Bob, you're with NJ.com, as we mentioned, covering the Eagles. Where can people find your stuff? Right there.
NJ.com. That's where you got to go to. If you type in NJ.com Eagles, you'll find all sorts of stuff from me and my partner Chris Franklin and Caden Steele. We feed the beast a lot on that website. So
all right. Great talking to you, Bob. We'll do it again this fall sometime.
All right. Thanks, Chet.
Thanks. Take care. All right. Always good to talk to Bob. He knows his stuff about the Eagles, and of course, he's still a big fan of the Phillies, so he will cover them unofficially for us. All right. Again, it's me solo tonight unless Bill shows up in the second half hour, which he says he's going to try to do. We shall see. In the meantime, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to give a shout out to all of the other great shows on the Edge of Philly Sports Network. I'm going to put up this fancy little graphic to show you all the shows that we have on there during the course of the week. We've got all the bases covered. You can catch all the action on EOPsports.com. You can also go to Edge of Philly Sports on YouTube. You'll find us on there, and they have their own, network of stuff with all of those shows broadcast on there. And you can find our show on Philly Pressbox Radio's YouTube channel, as I just alluded. Please help us out by hitting those subscribe, follow, and like buttons. Share with your friends and family. Tell them all how fine a show that we bring you every single Wednesday. Speaking of fine, I'm going to tell you about this place, the Irish Rover Station House. You know I love these guys, and there is so much happening over the next month at the Rover. They have, of course, Thursday through Sunday dinner specials, and they also have Killer Burger Thursdays, and that Baconator burger sounds pretty darn great. 12 pieces of bacon. Are you kidding me? Every Thursday they have different killer burgers to choose from. All right, they have Quizzo every Wednesday evening. Do I have that graphic? I do. Look at that. Quizzo every Wednesday, and they got a great lineup of music all through March. Some of it, of course, Irish themed because, hey, it's an Irish bar and it's St. Patrick's Day month. Speaking of which, boy, do they have stuff going on all week long in mid-March, March 12th through the 17th. They're going to celebrate for just about the full week. Irish food and, more than usual Irish beers. They have dancers on the weekend for St. Patrick's Day, which happens to fall on a Sunday this year. That is just some of what's on tap at the Irish Rover. 24 beers, of course, always on tap there. The Rover, located on Bellevue Avenue in Langhorne, and you can get all the details on their website, which, of course, is IrishRoverStationHouse.com.
Hi, football fans. This is Merrill Reese, and you're listening to Bill and Chet on Philly Pressbox Radio. It's good!
It is good, isn't it? You know what? I'm looking through the comments. We have Bob was great. He was. Bob always does a nice job. And we have our big food fan, Joe, 12 pieces of bacon and a heartstead. I love that. They don't have any scrapple there, Joe. I checked. No scrapple on the menu, but it's pretty darn good anyway. At the Irish Rover, of course. All right, let's talk a little Flyers hockey while we see if Bill shows up. And I do have a random Chet for you because some people really enjoy that. Some people probably don't give a crap, but hey, I throw them in once in a while anyway, and I could use it tonight because I can kill a few minutes without talking and ruining my voice. The Flyers, as I said, had a couple of tough losses over the weekend. They played the Rangers really, really well, but lost it 2-1. Then they lost a higher scoring game to those stinking Penguins. Huge win over Tampa Bay Tuesday night. I didn't realize this, but I know they've always had trouble with the Lightning, but Tampa Bay had beaten the Flyers in Philly 8 consecutive games before last night. So it was a tight game for 2 periods. The Flyers then went ahead, and Tampa Bay pulled their goalie a couple of times. Flyers filled the net, so won it rather easily the way it looked, but it was a lot tougher than it looked. Huge win for the Flyers because they are now in 3rd place still, and clinging to that spot. And you want to try to avoid the wild card spot there, because then you have a lower seed. So right now they're in pretty good spot because Washington lost last night as well. So that helped the Flyers, who play the Capitals this coming weekend. And that's a big one for both teams, obviously. I mentioned that I have a random Chet, and I can tell you that most of you follow me on Facebook. So you know that I had a post over the last week seeking your favorite songs by The Who. That, of course, is because Roger Daltrey is hitting a milestone birthday in the days ahead this Friday. So Bill voted, I voted, about 68 other people voted. I think we did have exactly 70 people naming their 3 favorite songs from those wonderful Brits, The Who. And here's a recap of how all of that turned out. Oh, I didn't ring the bell. Always got to ring the bell for random Chet. Hey, everybody. All right, another songs poll regarding a legendary classic rock act. We've done a bunch of these since last summer regarding, favorite songs from the Beach Boys, the Rolling Stones, Pink Floyd, and the Doors. And now, ahead of the great Roger Daltrey's 80th birthday on March 1st, we're going to talk about our favorite songs by The Who. As with previous polls, I asked a whole bunch of folks on Facebook and in some cases text or emails for their absolute favorite 3 songs by The Who. And then I compiled the results, and I'll give you the rundown in just a sec. I was a kid when The Who first broke onto the scene with My Generation, and then I Can See for Miles, the Tommy album, the fantastic Live at Leeds release. But for me, it was this one, Who's Next, the album that really got my attention, and that of millions more people too, I'm guessing. If you're any sort of a classic rock fan, especially if you're in my age bracket, I think you will know pretty much every song on this great album. Let's see, from, the opener, Bob O'Reilly and Bargain, through Love Ain't for Keeping, My Wife, The Song Is Over, to the side 2 finales, Behind Blue Eyes and Won't Get Fooled Again. Man, this sounds like a greatest hits album, and that's why it's considered to be one of the absolute greatest albums of all time. Of course, there were many albums in the years that followed, including Quadrophenia and Who Are You, the final one with drummer Keith Moon on it. There was a farewell tour or 2 that didn't stick. Pete Townsend and Roger are still touring as The Who today. I saw them in 2019, and they were great. Now, this isn't a history piece. You know The Who's story, but what did all of you go with in picking your favorite songs by The Who? Well, about 70 people voted, and you guys, for the most part, stuck with the big hits, although there were some deeper cuts and minor hits mentioned, like a quick one, While He's Away, Dr. Jimmy, My Wife, Pictures of Lily, and Trick of the Light. Oh, in tabulating the votes, a first place vote was worth 3 points, a second place vote 2 points, and a third place vote, you guessed it, 1 point. And I had a really tough time coming up with my personal top 3, but I ended up keeping it simple and going with a trio of classics. At number 3, no, it's not called Teenage Wasteland, kids. It's Baba O'Reilly from, Who's Next? At number 2, the best song on the double album, the rock opera, Quadrophenia, Love, Rain, or Me. And in the top spot, I had to go with that amazing 8.5-minute closing song on Who's Next, the classic Won't Get Fooled Again. Those are my choices, but how did you guys vote? Well, having counted up all the votes, I can tell you that several lesser hits and fan favorites like Athena, Another Tricky Day, 5:15, I Can't Explain, Long Live Rock, and even You Better You Bet got only minimal support from voters. They didn't crack the top 15. Oh, well. So here we go with your top 10 favorite songs from The Who. There was actually a tie for the 10th spot with a couple of old favorites, Substitute and Magic Bus. At number 9, the very first big hit from The Who, and one of their signature songs, My Generation, released in the fall of 1965. In the 8th spot, well, it actually had the same points total as My Generation, but since it got one more first place vote, I am going to put it at number 8, and it is the title song from that 1978 album, Who Are You? Keith Moon did die 3 weeks after the release of this fun album. All right, number 7 surprised me. Great song, but I really didn't think it would finish this high. From 1967, the song I Can See for Miles. That one got 7 first place votes. 6th, then the classic hit from the Tommy rock opera, Pinball Wizard. All right, as I run down the top 5, I'm going to put up a graphic to make it easier to soak all of this in. The top 5 massively popular songs that are still heard often on rock radio stations today. At number 5, Eminence Front, which did even better than I expected, but that is a great tune. Love that intro. And while the great Love Reign Over Me from Quadrophenia came in at number 3, the other 3 of the final 4 were all from that terrific Who's Next album that I mentioned earlier. Behind Blue Eyes at number 4, Baba O'Reilly at number 2, though that classic did get the most first place votes. And yes, Won't Get Fooled Again at number 1. I can't argue with any of those choices. So there you have it, your favorite songs by The Who. Happy 80th, Roger Daltrey. And to all of you, thanks for voting. Thanks for watching. Now go grab one of your Who albums and soak in all that great music once again. Well, there you go. I don't know if you're a fan of The Who, but I am. I mean, Roger Daltrey, great front man. Pete Townsend, of course, wailing on guitar. Great stuff. I'm sorry that I didn't get to see them, back in their heyday in the 1970s when Keith Moon was there and John Entwistle, who was around for another 20 plus years. Now it's just Roger and Keith Roger and Pete and a bunch of other guys. But I'll tell you, like I said, I saw them 5 years ago and they were still absolutely wonderful. So I think they're still doing some more shows this year. I do have another one of these coming up in a couple of months. I'll tell you about that further down the road. In the meantime, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to play a little spot from one of our lawyers in case I did anything wrong. You might need a lawyer because things happen.
All right, guys, let's talk about Cherry Law Firm. If you get hurt at work in a motor vehicle accident, personal injury, or affected by criminal law, you got to call David R. Cherry of the Cherry Firm. Call 610-565-0300 or go to cherryinjurylaw.com. Let David R. Cherry fight for your rights. Again, that number is 610-565-0300. That's 610-565-0300 or go to cherryinjurylaw.com. Let David R. Cherry fight for your right.
Well, I don't know if the 76ers need a lawyer, but they sure do need some help. They're a struggling team right now. It's kind of depressing watching them many nights without Joel Embiid. Tyrese Maxey had another all-star type performance in the loss to the Celtics Tuesday night, but after keeping it close for 3 quarters, Boston then just took over in the final quarter, which I think most people who were watching it kind of knew would happen. The Sixers are now, get this, 26-8 with Joel Embiid in the lineup, 7-17 without him. Let me say that again, 26-8 with Embiid, 7-17 without him. And people question whether he is a true MVP. I think that's an answer for you right there. Now look at these standings. Sixers have fallen to the 6th spot. I think the Heat do have the tiebreaker on them. So that's why the Heat are listed as number 5, the Sixers 6th, both teams 33-25. And as I said, they're very close to falling into that play-in section, which is teams 7 through 10 in the East. Sixers now just a half game ahead of both the Magic and the Pacers as of this very, very minute. So you know how that works. If you are in the 7 through 10 area, you got to play that stinking play-in tournament. You got to win one game and then win another game, blah, blah, blah. And then you end up, playing one of the top seeds anyway. So that would be the Celtics or Cavaliers at this point. I'm hoping the Sixers can hang on to that number 6 spot and then, theoretically play the Bucks in the first round of the postseason. But I'm going to do this because I'm going to talk to Joel. Listen, Joel Embiid, you have a lot of free time these days. You're probably watching this right now. You're going to be reevaluated from that knee injury 1 week from today or thereabouts, and they're going to start rehabbing you after that on that ailing knee. So please, please, please work your ass off. Get the knee reasonably healthy. Get your cardio work in. Get back on the court in late March, assuming you're, clear to play and all is going well. So you can then play the final few regular season games in early April and show everybody then that you're not just a regular season MVP, that you can be a postseason MVP too. You can lead your team to the conference finals. It is possible. It doesn't have to be a first or second round elimination like it is every year. No, you can do this. This could be the year. This rest could end up being a blessing in disguise. So please, Joel, do that for me. Please. All right. Just in case Joel was watching, I had to do that. Sixers just went through a gauntlet of a schedule like the Eagles did, in late in December and early January. Well, the Sixers just had one of those 4-game gauntlets against the top 4 teams in the NBA East. They went 1-3. Hey, they pulled off one win anyway over, I guess it was Cleveland last weekend. Tough loss, not a tough loss. They played pretty poorly against Glenn Doc Rivers and his Bucks on Sunday. Glad I was out and didn't get to see too much of that one. Like I said, the Boston game, you kind of knew how it was going to turn out. They kept it close for a while. It was a 12.5-point spread, and Boston ended up covering it with a final quarter blowout. So, oh well, the schedule should get a little easier lately, but really, we know that they need Embiid back for any hopes of doing anything in the postseason. Now, if Bill had been on the show, do I actually see Bill Furman? Hold on, everybody. Breaking news. We have Bill Furman.
Oh.
He's here.
Oh, we were on the fly. I was listening, though. Good job with Brooky. That was great. And I heard your random chat. That was good.
Always good to talk classic rock, Bill. You know that. And you heard my plea to Joel Embiid.
I did not hear that. The last thing I heard was they stink without Embiid or something. Yes. Did I miss that?
I just did a 2-minute up-close rant pleading Joel to, get a good report from the doctors and to work his butt off in the rehab and get the cardio up and come back for the end of the regular season and lead this team to the promised land in the playoffs.
Well, did you talk about the fact, Chet, that this team, did they fall into that 6th spot last night, or was there another loss?
The 6th spot, yes, right now, because Miami has the tiebreaker, and they are only a half game ahead of the Magic and Pacers, who are in the 7th and 8th spots.
Yeah, they're in trouble. This team's in big trouble, Chet.
Yeah, well, I gave the numbers, Bill. The numbers, in case you'd missed it, Sixers are 26-8 with Embiid in the lineup, 7-17 without him. Yeah. They need him so badly.
Hey, me and Joe Howell got a problem.
Well, Joe's got a lot of problems, but that's a whole other
comment. Look at that. I got to put that up. Holy cow.
Oh, Bill.
Joe, man, me and you, I thought we were tight, pal.
But look, other people were asking about you, making sure you're okay.
It's all good. It's all good. But hey, talking about the Sixers, Chet, I don't know, man. We've talked about this a couple weeks. They didn't do enough. D seemed to think last week that they did enough to, get by. But I don't see it. It's just not happening.
No, they can't get by without him. They certainly can't. Buddy Hield has cooled off since he joined the team. Tobias Harris has not been good at all lately. People love to bash Tobias, but he has been worthy of being bashed lately. Shot 5 for 19 in that loss last night.
I saw where he owned that.
He did own it, yeah.
He said, hey, I stunk it up. I got to be better. But, man, I'm not sure even at full strength that they're good enough. Not full strength without Embiid, that they're not good enough.
No, it doesn't matter. I mean, until they get Embiid back, they're not even worth watching most nights, which is kind of sad because I'm a Sixers fan. So I'm kind of glad I missed that Bucks game on Sunday.
Yeah. What happens when they lose these next 2 spots and they end up in the 8 hole?
Well, then, you got to do the play-in thing, and you got to win a couple of games in a row and get the opportunity to get crushed by the Celtics or Cavaliers in the true first round. So
Yeah.
you got to avoid that 7 through 10.
And, and I guess we'll see how this all plays out. But I think, you got to kind of look, if I'm the Sixers, I got to evaluate this whole thing from a lessons learned standpoint and say, what do we need to do differently? We know Embiid, for whatever his deal is, he's not dependable. As good a player as he is, he's not dependable. We can't build our team around one guy. We got to figure out a way to be better balanced team. And I said this how many times? A year or two ago, everything runs through him, and it's not good. It's not good when he's on the court. I've never thought it was good, because you end up a lot of times, not so much this year with Maxey, but you ended up with 4 spectators and 1 player last year. Maxey has certainly stepped up and done his thing this year. But, I think they've got to regroup. They got to reorganize and figure the whole thing out, because this isn't the answer.
Yeah, we'll talk more about it in the weeks ahead, of course. Hey, you were going to talk about the fact that Philly could be shut out of March Madness this year.
Yeah.
You were going to mention that Villanova is probably the best bet. But, Bill, I give you this. Drexel is 18-11 and 11-5 in the CAA, the Coastal Athletic Association, or whatever the hell it's called these days. They are tied for second in that conference, and they would get an automatic bid if the Dragons were to win that conference tournament. So the Dragons have a shot, and Villanova does as well. Drexel, by the way, beat Villanova by a bucket earlier this season.
Yeah, everybody beat Villanova in the city pretty much. But, there's 68 teams in the field. ESPN bracketology right now has, or last night before Villanova win, had Villanova in their first 4 out grouping. Mm-hmm. So basically had them kind of like as the 70th team in a 68 team field. But I say to you, with no Philly teams involved, does March Madness lose a little luster to you, or do you just do it for the pool, the brackets, and just have fun with it?
No, it does definitely lose a little luster for sure. I mean, I'm not a huge college hoops fan these days anyway. I haven't watched more than 10 minutes of college basketball this entire season, to be honest. I think the last games I really watched were last April's tournament. So, with no Philly teams in it, it definitely takes a lot away for me. But, I will get in a pool and, follow along for a little while. And then I'll watch the Final Four and the championship game. But it's a shame when we don't have any great Philly teams in it. And it's been a couple of years now since, Villanova's been good and nobody else has been great for a lot of years.
Yeah, and that St. Joe team at 17-11 is a little misleading because they're 7-8 in their conference.
And they're
like 8th place in their conference, but they sit there, and if you look on the surface, you say, well, they're a 17-11 team. They have a chance. Well, not when you're 7-8 in your conference. You probably don't have a chance.
And, Penn used to always be a good shot of winning the Ivy League. Penn is awful this year. They're like, 2-8 or something in their conference.
Goes back to the whole transfer portal thing. The best player in the Big Five played for Penn last couple of years, and he transferred to St. John's. Left the Wharton School at University of Pennsylvania to go to St. John's to play basketball up in the city. So a big hit for Penn, and Penn is just 10-16, and obviously they're on the outs.
How about that? Bill, I talked a little bit about the Flyers, the fact that, they had that tough weekend, losing a couple of close ones. They played real well against the Rangers, but just couldn't get any offense going. Huge win, as I mentioned, over Tampa Bay Tuesday night. First time in 9 meetings in Philly that they were able to beat the Lightning. That was huge, I think, for their confidence. Bobby Brink back in the lineup with the big club and scored the first goal. So that was nice to see.
Yeah, and there was 2 really good solid periods of hockey by both teams. 1-1 at the end of 1-1 at the end of 2 periods, and the third period the Flyers just took it to them and dominated them, and jumped out early, got 3 goals in the third period in the first probably 5 or 6 minutes, and cruised along. Good win against a good Tampa team that. The Flyers need all the points, and as you mentioned, the Capitals lost. That's good.
Yeah.
They can play with anybody. They got to get the goaltending situation straightened out. Ursanen looks fine, but he can't play every night. They got injuries, and they're still playing well. Cam Atkinson, a healthy scratch last night. That was kind of interesting as well. They need TK back. He's their leading goal scorer, and they need him back.
Yeah, I didn't hear an update. Do we know yet how long he's out? Is it just game to game, day to day?
Possibly this weekend. They said he could be back. So, but he's missed a handful of games, and they've lost those games by 1 goal. So maybe, he's a guy that can make a difference.
And Jamie Drysdale as well, who's hasn't been great, but he is a guy who plays on the power play, and he's going to be out a couple of weeks, it looks like.
He could be out a long time. Kind of mixed feelings there. He really hurt that shoulder again, but they said he was in the press box last night without a sling on the shoulder. So maybe it's not quite as bad as they thought it was, but it sure looked bad when it happened, and it was dragging as he left the ice the other day.
Yeah. Oh man. So what else should we talk about, Bill? We covered the Phillies, the Eagles.
Did we talk about the best tailgaters in Philadelphia? Because we got them with Bob Cavanaugh and the gang at Cavs Philly Tailgate. That's for sure.
It is funny that you mentioned that. We did not. So I'm going to do that right now. Cavs Philly Tailgates. They've been cooking up a terrific catering business now for 30 plus years. Known best for their tailgate parties, Cavs is a 3-time winner of Philly Tailgates, Jack Daniel's Great American Tailgate Party Contest, and a past winner of the Philly Daily News Tailgate Award. Cavs also does corporate events and parties, you name it, and they have some things coming up. Opening day for the Phillies 1 month from today, believe it or not, March 28th. They'll have a nice tailgate before that game. They're doing a couple of tailgates before WrestleMania, that 2-night event in Philly in early April. And then June 8th, when Kenny Chesney comes to town, they will be tailgating for that as well. Order your tickets from the website, phillytailgates.com. Check the site, and if you have any questions, you can email them at cavscatering@verizon.net. Cavs Philly Tailgates is the way to go. And there's our buddy Cav. What a good guy. They also, of course, work closely with the crew at Philly Sports Trips. Vince and the gang, they're the folks to use for all the Eagles road games and more. They have Phillies spring training trips coming out, but they're sold out, so don't even try to get in on that. But they have regular season baseball trips to Boston, Baltimore, Chicago, Pittsburgh, and London when the Phillies play the Mets, plus Philadelphia Union trips to both Austin and Nashville. And yes, they will get you to Brazil for the Eagles season opener in Brazil, early September for that one. Check out those trips and all the other ones at phillysportstrips.com.
Very good. Hey, Chet, our man Kid here. I was going to bring this up here at the end. It brings up women's basketball, Chet. The player at Iowa, she's pretty good, that Caitlin Clark. Triple-doubled again the other day. The Big Ten tournament, which this is not the Big Ten tournament, this Ohio State-Iowa game. The Big Ten women's tournament sold out.
Oh, wow. It
is sold out. And for this Ohio State-Iowa game this week, tickets going for $500.
Is that on Saturday, do you know?
It is on, I believe it is on Saturday. But yeah, College Game Day will be there. It's a big deal, and it is actually, it's really cool. I watched it again last week. They got whipped by Indiana. Honestly, my opinion is she's tremendous. She can do it all. They're not that good otherwise. I don't see them winning the national championship. I don't see them beating Ohio State. Not that I know a lot about Ohio State, but if you get a chance, if they're on regular network TV, check out Caitlin Clark. She's something special. Not somebody you're going to see coming around every year.
Bill, this is 3 weeks in a row you have mentioned Caitlin Clark.
I have. You know what? I recognize athletic accomplishment, Chet.
Yeah,
and
she certainly got that, man.
Is doing that.
You were probably going to ask me about next week's show. I don't have a guest lined up yet. I know this. It will be somebody talking about the Phillies. I'm working on one real good one, but I haven't got a commitment yet. But if that falls through, I will have a backup. You always got to have a backup plan, Bill.
I'm hoping your co-host shows up next week on time. Let's just go with that. Let's just hope we have a co-host in the seat.
Don't you just tell them who you are and you have a duty?
Well, there's one thing I learned in this business, Chet. When you're welding, You can only burn metal just so fast, and after that, it just takes what it takes. So that's how we rolled today. That's all I can say. Got to do what you got to do.
Didn't you retire like 2 years ago? Did I miss something?
Yeah. We got to revisit that. That hasn't worked out all that well.
Oh,
so
man.
What else you got? Good Eagles talk, good Phillies talk with Brooky.
We got all of that. Yeah, that was fun. It was good to have Brooky back on the show.
I had another thing I was going to mention.
Yes.
I heard y'all talking of baseball. I read a thing where, if you remember a couple years back, Ken 100 Miles Giles.
I saw him pitch today for the Braves. I had the game on my laptop as I worked. So, yeah, Ken 100-mile-an-hour Giles, who doesn't throw 100 anymore, is now with the Braves.
Hasn't pitched in years, several years. He's back. I think today was his second game. I didn't know he was pitching today. He pitched the other day, and he was lights out. Not throwing 100 miles an hour, but he looks like he's come back with a pitcher, and as a pitcher more than a ball.
Yeah.
Last the Braves need is to have another strong arm show up in that bullpen, coming out of nowhere.
Speaking of pitchers, it's really frustrating to watch Gregory Soto because he pitched for the Phillies today, and he is so inconsistent. He can look so good, one batter with his stuff, and then he gets wild and looks just awful. So he's not a closer candidate for me, but you want him to get right so he can be, a seventh or eighth inning guy, but he's just so damn inconsistent.
Yeah. Hey, did you see any of the broadcast Sunday, the opening home game against the Yankees?
I did not. I was out partying, believe it or not, on a Sunday afternoon.
Go figure. So Alvarado comes in to pitch the fifth.
Yeah.
Right. I heard you guys talking about Alvarado. You know how I feel about him. He ain't the closer. He comes in to pitch the fifth. He throws the first three pitches, 98, 99, 94. And Ben Davis says, did anybody tell him it's February 25th? Don't be doing that. Like, why are you throwing a ball 99 on February 25th on the first three pitches of your spring season? That's a disaster waiting to happen. I hate to say it.
I guess just because he can. Hey, before we go, I just wanted to mention we lost one of my favorite comedians today, Bill. Yeah. Richard Lewis, who was a great stand-up comic back in the late 70s and early 80s. He was on the late-night talk shows all the time. He did a good sitcom with Jamie Lee Curtis from 89 to 92 called Anything But Love. And most recently, he's been on Larry David's show, Curb Your Enthusiasm, the last several years. And as it turns out, Larry David and Richard Lewis, who are both 76, were born 3 days apart in the same hospital, and they became pretty much lifelong friends. So Richard Lewis, who had a lot of medical issues, health issues the last several years, died of a heart attack last night, and he was one of my favorites. So let's
just drill into that for just a second. Richard Lewis or Jamie Lee Curtis? What really made you like that show?
Well, it was Jamie Lee Curtis is what attracted me to the show, of course, but I did like Richard Lewis also. And it was an underrated sitcom. So Anything But Love ran from 89 and 92 on ABC. I did enjoy it. Always enjoy Jamie Lee Curtis.
There you go. All right. What else? We got like 1 minute. Sorry for being late. Had to do life got in the way.
Well, we don't have time, but if we had time and you were here on time, I was going to talk about the whole storm the court controversy. I have mixed emotions about it. You hate to see anybody get hurt. I don't know why it's necessary to storm the court, but it is kind of fun to see it when it's a huge win for a college team. Although Wake Forest didn't need to do it. They were actually favored by a couple of points in that game. Sure, they beat Duke, but still.
Well, that's why beating Duke is a thing. I mean,
yeah, they're
special. Duke's a special program, and it doesn't matter if you're favored or not. If you beat them, they get excited.
Since you're here, Bill, you want to wrap it up?
I will wrap it up. Let's
wrap it up.
Tonight's special guest, Bob Brookover, and Jim Chesko for carrying the load tonight. Our sponsors, the Irish Rover Station House, Cavs, Philly Tailgate, PPCC 118 Raz Room. For Jim Chet Chesko, this is Bill Furman. We hope you enjoyed Chet's show and my little bit of the show. And we'll be back with us next Wednesday, March 6th at 7 p.m. You see us live on Facebook, on our Philly Pressbox Radio YouTube channel, and listen on Google Podcasts, as well as Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and all the others. High hopes, Philadelphia sports fans, and let's go with let's get healthy, Joel Embiid.
Yeah.
I hope